Hey guys, what's up? It's Clayton. Today is June 20th, and I just thought it was time to update everybody on what the garden's looking like. So, we're gonna start on the patio. I've got a bunch of new stuff potted up. I've got my Hawaiian chili peppers that I've actually had inside the entire winter in like tiny little pots. I just put both of them in the same pot because I was running low on some soil, but they're already growing, looking good. Extra eggplants, ground cherries, more peppers, some tulsi, basil. Here are the big eggplants that I've got. Let's see, the Chie eggplant. This is one that has a flower already. Right there. This is actually open this morning, but it rained a little bit, so everything's closing up. The Waimanalo eggplant, and then one other variety, the Badajan sesame eggplant. All three of them are looking fantastic right now. Look, this Chie is getting two tops to it. Let's see. Golden berries. Some of my extra tomatoes are looking fantastic. This is one that accidentally dropped a tree branch. A branch from the tree fell down. I had to take apart the loofah gourd trellis. Luckily there's no gourds on it yet. And as I was taking it down, the tree fell, bent the cage up, and literally only damaged one part of the tomato. So I'm very grateful that that's the only damage that occurred. But this little one is the Millefleur tomato. Here is the Puerto Cortez, which is my, I believe, earliest variety. Oh, that's not it. It's this one here. This is the earliest variety that I have. It's already, see if we can get in there. See, it's got some tomatoes on it already. And this variety here has some tomatoes on it already. And that is the Siberian. So those are going to be larger than the Puerto Cortez, I believe. Then this right here is the Queen of Malinalco, which is a tomatillo. It's a yellow tomatillo that's more oblong than it is round. Of course, my potatoes. I've got Kennebec tomatoes. Oh my gosh, Kennebec potatoes, which are the large white fleshed potatoes. And I also have these blue potatoes. I don't quite remember. I think the name is just blue, but it's actually purple in color. And I've got quite a bit of those. So I just added some soil and actually a little bit of fertilizer, which may have been a little extra, but that's okay. And then more potatoes along here, along the aquaponics bed. I'm experimenting with putting a corn in with the potatoes because I've read and seen some videos that corn grows well with potatoes. They have very similar needs. This is one of my dwarf corn varieties, just like these ones here, the gas flint corn and the Morden flint corn. And as you can see here, it is setting tassel. These are a extremely quick producing corn variety, both of them are. And I'm expecting to see them in roughly 50 days. I've also got some cowpeas in with the corn, and the aquaponic system is looking rather wild and crazy. I'm loving it. Let's see, some of my, what are you, Mizuna here, and my red mustard. Actually, some of it has crossed. These are just stuff that grew back from last year. Just reseeded themselves, and they're producing seed again, making flowers, attracting all these beautiful predator wasps that are getting rid of a lot of my caterpillar pests that are eating various brassicas. Yeah, I threw a bunch of different seed in here, so I've got different mizunas, some romaines, tatsoi, cilantro, a different variety of romaine, that red mustard, I think this is like a buttercrisp lettuce, kales, there's actually a kohlrabi in the back, some cabbages, I love this. This is a perpetual spinach, which is actually a Swiss chard. It just has a more spinachy flavor. It's not as hard to eat raw as Swiss chard is. We'll put it that way. There's a couple more things in here. Some reseeded, I think those are tomatillos. Those might be the Queen of Malinalco. And then some ground cherries. I had a large stand over here that had container plants last year, and they just dropped some fruit and reseeded, and I think that's awesome. So I didn't plant those specific varieties this year, so I'm gonna get them anyway, so I'm pretty happy about that. And then of course, check up on the goldfish. They're looking great. I put a few guppies in here, little baby ones, just because they're a little more efficient at eating the mosquito larvae that occur in some of the less circulated areas. And they multiply out, and then I can bring them back inside and put them in the fish tanks. And it's just a really good way of increasing my guppy numbers much more quickly because they get a bigger house, they get more nutrients, there's much more extra food from the goldfish that the guppies can clean up. This is one of my just in the moment buys from Home Depot. It's a bonfire patio peach. It had fruit on it, it dropped all of its fruit, but that's okay, it's just recovering. I really shouldn't have hoped for fruit this year anyway. But yeah, it'll only get maybe 5 feet tall if I'm lucky. I just figured it was a decorative plant that I might get some fruit off of. Got some wild or native plants here. The Jack in the Pulpit, I'm hoping will produce some seeds that I can sow in other places. My mayapple is going to produce. I checked some of the mayapple sites in my local forest, and I don't know if something either grabbed them or if the conditions weren't just right and they just dropped the fruit, but at least I'll have this one. Some sweet Sicily that's going to seed. I love the smell of the leaves, and when you pull up the plant, the root smells really good too. Once I get it to multiply, I plant some seeds out. I might be making a version of root beer out of those eventually. Some Solomon seal that I planted 2 years ago. It didn't come up at all last year, but came up this year. I believe this is called honeywort. It's in the same family as borage. I got that from Baker Creek. Let's see. So the grapes right here, and they go real far, all the way along the fence. I love how that goes like that. They are just getting ready. Actually, they're producing fruit now. Obviously not ripe. Oh, there goes a cicada. We may not have as much fruit as we had last year, but it's still going to be a pretty substantial amount. Just, I mean, for these 2 grapevines, they grow really far. I've put in some rhubarb down here, and then I put cardboard down with grass on top of it to prevent more weeds, and then just cut the little holes for the rhubarb to come in. I figure that's a really good way to maximize space, because you don't need to go and tend to rhubarb that much. Plus, having that cardboard down is really helpful with the weeding. Obviously, you know, there's some stuff up against the fence, but it's much less. And my little cactus, my prickly pear, the spineless prickly pear that I have. Look at that little growth. Pretty cool. So hopefully it gets larger. I'm not going to put too high of expectations on it, but I'll take some cuttings off of it in the fall so I can bring it inside, because it's not going to survive the winter. More cowpeas back here, some nasturtiums. These are Egyptian walking onions that I got from work that we'll see if they make it. If they don't, I can get more cuttings. Some regular onions, I think they're Vidalias. This lemon balm loves to reseed and come back, and I like that. The garlic is almost ready to be taken out. You can tell when garlic is ready when there's no more green leaves, so this one is showing a little bit of dying on the end and there's no new leaves. So really I could take it out now. I'm probably gonna let it dry a little bit since it just rained, but they're pretty much ready to go. Ooh, these are new. My carrots from last year, yeah, we transplanted them from the garden over here this spring, and I'm just gonna let them flower so I can collect some seed. No clue what variety. I planted a bunch of different varieties. And this down here, I thought was radish, but the way that the seeds are like forming here, that tells me that this is most likely a turnip, because the radishes produce seeds like that. These little guys, and they're perfectly edible, whereas these are really fibrous. The turnip ones, they're very fibrous. They're not that great tasting. Then the radish ones, they taste just like radish. We're actually pickling some to see how that goes. And I think honestly, it produces more stuff to eat when you just eat all the seed pods as opposed to the radish, because there's just, when you add it all together, like even just that right there, that's more food to eat than one single radish for at least most varieties. My prairie turnip, still really small, but they're hanging in there. I'm sure they'll be small for the first year, and then the second year, they're a biennial, so I'll expect a little bit more out of them next year. And I'll clear away all this so they have a lot more area to grow, a lot more sunlight next year. Beets, they may be a little close. I'm monitoring that. I'm trying to grow them a little close so that I can harvest like baby beets, and then as I weed them out, it makes more space for the bigger ones. More radish flowers. I've got 2 rows of carrots in here. The way these are growing, they're getting really tall. I think they're actually gonna flower too, and these are from seed, and that might just be poor conditions, but it also might be poor seeds. So we'll see how that goes, but I'm not too upset with it. I'm planting a lot of carrots. I just sowed a bunch more seeds in the garden. And if they make flowers that bring in all of those beneficial insects and feed them, it's not necessarily a negative. I think there's a lot more positive in that. I can bring in all of these beneficial animals now, and I might be benefiting off of it next year. It's just not going to be immediate. Okay. Ooh. Okay, so tags flipped around. Got some sweet pickled peppers, a couple random peppers, lots and lots of potatoes. I was actually really worried about them this morning. I came out with the hose and watered them because they they were curling up, the leaves were. But now that I gave them some water and it rained, they are looking much better. But let's get into the garden. So these are blackberries. They're actually producing fruit, which is new. They do not look great. These are my dad's. Some of them died. They're coming up haphazardly. But this ground cover that I just let come in of wild strawberry are looking awesome. I came in and picked like 2 handfuls before. They're not super sweet, but they've got a little sweetness to them. It's a little treat. And you know, if you don't want to eat them, let something else eat them. Okay, so I think to me, what stands out most is the corn here. So let's see if I can remember again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 varieties of corn in this garden. The raised bed has 3 more varieties. And they're planted very, very densely. I'm actually not planning on thinning these, despite the fact that the ones that are planted single look way bigger. I'm just gonna try and keep a good fertilizing regimen with, I've done feather meal, I've done like urea, I've done some fermented plant juices, stuff like that. Yeah, here are some of the standard heights. We got the Pioneer, and I've got the Painted Mountain, and then I've got 2 that are a little bit faster maturing in the Bronze Orange and the it's another orange variety. It's going to be taller. And then the Blue Jade is in a bed by itself. I've got the Maizmorato on the up against the trellis, tied up, because it is going to get even taller than this trellis here. I'm hoping to have, let's see if I can show you, I have an achocha, here's the Glenorchy peas as we're walking by, but I have an achocha vine right here, and my hope is that it is just going to blow up across here and kind of hold on to the corn as both of them grow, keeping the corn up. And if it doesn't, you know, I just tie it up a little bit. I've got some strings that are keeping it from blowing too far. I want to make sure that it gets a little bit, but the way that it is planted with a single row, it's more likely to blow around, and with how tall it is, it's definitely going to blow around. These plants are notorious for being blown over, at least from what I've read, and they require some type of staking, if not in a mass planting. And I get a lot of wind coming through here, which is weird because we're surrounded by trees on most sides, but it comes through like here, and then like I guess gets funneled through the little space that's left, and makes it speed up, so everything is blown around quite a bit. So some of my cabbage is starting to, I think, make the heads. Really small still, but they're getting there. And I'll show you a couple that I think are looking even more far along. I've got some perennial onions that came from seed, Swiss chard that I need to pick. I'm letting some lamb's quarter just do their thing, and as I need space I just pick them out. And then of course the radishes I'm letting do their thing, flower, so I can collect some seed, but also so the pollinators can benefit. But check this out. That is a Bambara groundnut, which is a cowpea. This variety is, I believe, from, it's from West Africa. I don't quite remember where, but it is a it's a cowpea that grows like a peanut. So the flowers, you know, they get pollinated and then they sink into the ground where they produce the edible bean. And you can make paste out of it like peanut butter. It's a fantastic protein source that feeds millions, if not, I think the stats were actually like close to 2 billion, if not more, people around the world in Southeast Asia, Southern Asia, and a lot of parts of Africa, where the majority of where those people were being fed, with that as their primary source of carbon protein. Here we have a purple cabbage looking a little further along, looking real cute. A pop-up tomato that I just said, you know what, you made it this far, let's see how you go. This is a Tahitian squash right here. So that's it's a Moschiata squash, like the butternut, except it can get like 3 or 4 foot long. So a lot more squash meat per plant. So I'm really excited to see how those do. I've got another like mix of different Moschiatas, along with some pop-ups of like a butterbush. And if they cross, that's awesome. We'll see what type of genetics come out of it. If they don't, cool, I'm just gonna save seeds anyway. Just looking forward to seeing what happens. Ooh, okay. I'm really excited about this. Oh, more Bambara nut. This is my gold amaranth, and then this purple amaranth I got from work. Some more pop-up cucurbits, and then tomato. I'm not currently seeing my Jamaican red amaranth in there, but it's sowed in all of these beds, in between the blocks of corn, and then in some more of the open spaces as well. So I've got 3 varieties of the amaranth, and I might have a 4th that's popping up from last year, which I'm excited about. I'll see if I can find that again. But here's another one of the gold amaranth. I sowed them pretty early, and they're just now like showing themselves, which to me is a little, I don't know, I guess I was worried, but I trust them. I think they'll do what they need to do. Doing a little bit of weeding. Some of my stuff is being a little extra, taking up more space than I'd like. So I just, you know, this wood sorrel, like, thank you for doing your thing, but need a little bit more space because I have sown in another butterbush. And this is just stuff that comes up by itself. Those are just pole beans, I think. Might be a dry pole bean. Some more of those beans, and that's just a smart weed. I've got, oh, what are you? So this is, like I said, this is a mammoth sunflower. We found the seed in my grandpa's collection, and it's from 2004. So, oh geez, 16 years, I think, 16 years old, in a peanut butter jar, and it came up. And I sowed quite a few. This is the only one that I've spotted so far, but I've sown them at different times, so I'll be seeing some more as I go through. More pop-up squash, some cantaloupes, and then another pop-up squash. I might need to thin these eventually, but again, I'm just gonna see who wants to be here and is the most vigorous grower. Another amaranth, which I'm so happy to see that, like, vibrant, like this one's less vibrant, but I'll show you as they get older they're less vibrant, but when they're really young, they're like a really yellow stem, and then this one is the biggest one so far, which I'm really happy about because it's one of the shadiest part of the garden, and it's the biggest growing one. So it's definitely not what I thought. Oh, I gotta remember where I'm planting stuff, because I know I planted a soybean here. That looks like a soybean to me. But geez, I can't keep track of anything, and sometimes I just am not good at identifying when I'm trying to go through stuff fast. Oh, here we go. Good example. This one is yellow still. So yeah, they start out and they show their true colors very vigorously or very vibrantly. But the purple, they keep their color all the time. Again, this is another, these two squash here just came up. They just decided that they wanted a party, and yeah, we're gonna let them show us what they got. I have some beets up here. I threw down some more beet seeds right before and right during while it was raining, so hopefully we get some more. The carrots are looking really good. I don't see anybody over here deciding to bolt, and I think that is in part due to the fact that this does get shade. It's partial shade, partial sun. You can see a lot of like early morning sun, then like mid-morning dappled shade, and then like middle of the day sun, and then it actually gets hidden by this walnut tree here, and the like super harsh end of the day sun doesn't hit the garden at all, really. So we'll see how everybody reacts to that. I just planted this a few days ago. This is a Canna edulis. It's a Canna bulb, so this is a red flowered one, and I grew this from seed during the winter, and I think I got 5 more. There's 2 different plantings in the garden, and then they're spread out. But this has an edible tuber, and I just think that's so cool to have different edible crops that are, you know, not common. It's good for your diet. It's, you know, good to just experiment with things, try new stuff, and yeah, hopefully it'll flower. I transplanted out a little late because I needed to get it readapted to the sun because it was inside. Another pop-up tomato. I get pop-up ground cherries too, which is an awesome thing. When you have them 1 year and then you don't have to necessarily worry about getting them in. Ooh, I'm stepping on some sharp stuff. Yeah, I'm right underneath the pine tree, and some of those needles are a little sharper than others. So I have an extra purple cabbage that it just looks beautiful. It's not quite far along. I've given it a little bit of extra fertilizer, but this gets like really dappled sun, not really a ton of full sun at all. And these are some of the cabbages that have been doing the best, and I think that's because we've had such hot days that the other ones are just stressed, but these ones are looking really beautiful so far. Here's some more smartweed. I've read that the people that lived in Cahokia in Illinois supposedly use the seed as a grain to eat. So I'm letting a couple that just sprouted up hopefully go to seed, and I'll see if I can eat that. See if I like it. Yeah, it's just an experiment. Some more cowpeas. I just throw cowpeas. Like, I've seen Matt Powers just, you know, throw them as his cover crop, and I see an open spot and I just put them in. Here I've put in a lot more carrot seed, and you can see there's a bean coming up right there. I've put in some more beans, put in some soybeans, and with this rain I'm hoping that they'll come up. and if not, I'll give them a little extra irrigation. And then the yellow potted snow peas from Glenorchy again. These have been fantastic in my salads, and it's just such a great spring, early summer taste. And then my achocha. This one is the best growing so far. So I'm guessing, I think that this light, that's, you know, that early day and then dappled the rest of the day, is really the best for my plants, because everybody else is, you know, making it, but this one is, I mean, shooting up. So really awesome. Some extra tomatoes and sweet potatoes and stuff like that are all scattered throughout here. It's an experiment. And I've got my 2 varieties of sunchokes. This red rover sunchoke is not looking too great. It looks like it has some type of virus. But the white fusea sunchokes have much less damage, if any, on some of these plants. So that's promising. It's always good to have more than one variety of something when you're starting out, just so that you can figure out what works best for you. Whew. Yeah, more tomatoes, some sweet potatoes popped in, tomato, some wild mint I put here because the this pipe leaks a little bit, so it gets extra water in this area, so I'm just taking advantage of that. More tomatoes. I've got some Schisandra berry vines that are hopefully going to grow up this fence. That's the Chinese 5-spice berry. And then this here I'm excited about. This is the Peruvian, the Inca corn. The really giant seeds that, if you've ever had like corn nuts, they're very starchy. That's what that is, and I'm just trying it out in like almost full shade. It gets a few hours of sun, but I've seen some people play around with the Peruvian plants, planting them in shade to get them to flower faster, because they're photoperiodic, so they're really sensitive to how much sun there is, and once there's less sun, they start to produce seed. And then yeah, I've got a couple of American plums that hopefully I'll be grafting the Louisa plum onto. And I think the last thing we'll do is, well, I'll show you the tomatoes on the side of the house, and then I'll quickly show you the peach in the front, and I've planted a few other things I might point at really quick. So it's a little loud. I've got some Agastache hyssop, which tastes like root beer. I love putting that in teas, or just like taking one little leaf and really good. Nasturtiums up here looking good. I've got a hops vine. It's a Cascade hop. This doesn't get a ton of sunlight, so we'll see what happens. Mint, beans are between some of the tomatoes. I'm getting a lot of my tomatoes that are starting to flower. These ones obviously don't look as good as the container ones because they receive less water, they receive less sunlight. They're kind of just left to their own devices. I do prune them up a little bit, and since I have such a diversity of varieties, I did give all of them a cage. I may come in later and stake them so they can grow even higher, but not yet. I'm trying to do it with the least amount of work as possible. But some of these varieties are going to need like a 6-foot tall stake at least. Okay. I've put some anise hyssop over here. This is going to have a bluish purple flower. Fantastic licorice taste. Great for teas, great for pollinators. Another cannabulb. A few varieties of milkweeds. And then some yarrow. This is a red flowered yarrow. The rabbits love to eat the flowers off of that, so I'm surprised I still have one left. Little checkup on the trifoliate orange, some new growth on this smaller one, and then this cage fence here is for this Caucasian mountain spinach. It's not growing too much. I think it was in shock a little bit, but it's recovering. It's from the Caucasus Mountains in Eastern Europe, and some like archaeologists, I think, or something like that, like paleodietitians believe that it was one of the first greens that were commonly eaten throughout Eastern Europe by like Neanderthals. So I thought that was pretty cool. And if it can handle our winters and it comes back every year, free greens, you know. The parsley is all going to flower, going to attract hopefully swallowtail butterflies to lay their eggs on, but also parasitoid wasps. Some interesting insects. But I'm excited for this. This is the maypop, the northernmost growing passion flower. This variety comes from Minnesota, where it grew up against a building. So I planted it up against a building, and I'm hoping that within the next few years I'll get some fruit off of it. The other one I planted is getting covered up by other vines. Some extra cabbage is thrown in and all that. Oh yeah, this is something I need to show you guys. The sweet potatoes got a little something that I don't really care for in the leaves, but other than that, it's growing beautifully. And then this is another Badajoz sesame eggplant. Look at all of that branching in there. I probably need to take some of this out, but it is growing like a bush, and a sturdy bush at that. It's getting basically full sun, and just loving it. Some more peppers, some Belize sweet habaneros, and then literally all the other peppers up front are just extras. There's some Ojo de Pixie, some Goldfinger, and then another yellow one. My petunias are taking over in this container. I think this is like a bell pepper in here. But yeah, I planted like 6 petunias thinking, oh, they're not gonna get that big. Well, they got big and they look beautiful, so definitely gonna try and plant those again, because they just came from seed, so it wasn't really that much trouble. Less trouble than a tomato. My lavender is about to flower. Those all came from seed. Those lavender all came from seed. The sweet alyssum was bought from the store, but I might try to, well, we are trying to get some perennial alyssum. We'll see. And then, ta-da! The peach tree is getting there. It's getting close. You know, they're golf ball sized, just about. Still a fair amount of them. I've had to pick quite a few off. I dropped the ball on the early spraying. I should have sprayed kale and clay and probably neem oil right as the flower petals were dropping and the fruit was forming, and that is just a deterrent for plum cerculeo, which is the little worm that you typically find inside most fruit. So I've had to pull a lot of fruit off that had them, and then I just did some fermented plant juice, and yeah, so those nutrients still go back to the plants, which is good, but less fruit. You're seeing a little bit of yellowing on the leaves. That is a little bit of drought stress, heat stress, so I have had to irrigate the tree. It dropped quite a few leaves, and then once I irrigated it, it greened up, and we had another hot day, so it got a few more yellow leaves, so I really need to keep on making sure this is watered. And then just micronutrient sprays for health. We had a little bit of run-in with some peach leaf curl. I picked off some of the leaves, and then I did a micronutrient spray with seaweed emulsion, fish emulsion, some FPJ, and stuff like that. And it's really died down. I don't see too much. And I think the heat really helped that. The sunlight drying out the canopy really helped, but I'm gonna have to keep on that because I know it definitely can come back. Okay, and I love this. This is a pink flowered yarrow. I've got other colors that will be coming in soon. Another one over there by the Chicago Hardy Fig. And I just love the color, the pop. I can cut the leaves and use them for fermented plant juices, nutrient like stuff to spray on the plants and just give the other plants nutrients, because it has such a deep root that collects nutrients that even the trees sometimes can't reach. So it's a good thing to gild your trees with those deep-rooted plants that go deeper than the actual trees do, so that you can just, you know, cut some leaves off, or when you ride by with the lawnmower and you hit them at the end of the year, or when they're getting too tall and they're falling over, you chop them up and it goes back into the soil, back onto the surface of the soil, which just restarts that cycle. It gets the nutrients from too deep down, brings them up to the surface so they can be used. And I think that's a really cool concept. And then some oregano and chocolate mint. This is peppermint, I think. One of the two, I think it's peppermint. But those hopefully keep out some pests, but also they make me more likely to walk out here and mow the lawn, because every time I walk by, I just do that, and I walk on some because it's been mowed, and when you mow, the whole yard smells like mint, and I think that's awesome. But yeah, like I mentioned, Chicago Hardy Fig came back through the winter. Sometimes we put buckets over it. We put a bunch of straw over it this year, and yeah, I'm zone 5B, so it dies down to the ground and comes back. It produces a few figs, not too many. But I think as the root system grows and it gets older, it'll produce even more. The apple tree something's going on with that. I may have done an improper spray, but also I live in the suburbs, and that just means a lot of disease because nobody else sprays their trees. Well, the batteries run low, so that's gonna be it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know if you want me to do more videos, if you have anything you want me to do a video about, and yeah, see ya.